Hi everyone and welcome to another stylish card making techniques with Jenny. Today I'm going to be featuring the Paint-A-Flower Sweet Pea Stamp Set and showing you how I create this gorgeous background focused card featuring heat embossing and a little touch of vellum, so stay tuned. Hey everyone, it's Jenny and I wanted to give you a quick look at today's featured product. It's the new Paint-A-Flower Sweet Pea Outline Stamp Set. This is part of a subscription from Altenew where you receive a new stamp set every month. This one is the December 2021 stamp set for a little discount. They can also be purchased separately and they always feature a gorgeous outline floral that's perfect for painting. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. Today I am going to be doing some watercoloring. I'm using this watercolor paper pack from Altenew and it comes in already trimmed down to size A2 pieces, which is awesome for being quick, ready to go. And both sides are pretty smooth, so it's really great for detailed stamping and also for heat embossing, which is what I'm going to be doing as the first step on my card today. So I've lined up the Sweet Pea stamp in my MISTI, and before I do my stamping, I'm going to apply a powder bag, just to make sure I don't get any embossing powder sticking where I don't want it. That removes all that static cling and any greasy fingerprints that you might have on there. I'm going to ink it up with the Altenew Embossing Ink and then stamp it down, and you'll see that I've got this one off to the side. I was originally only going to be stamping once and that's why I used my mini MISTI, but I changed my mind. I'm so glad I did, because I'm going to create an all over background pattern. I'm heat embossing with Golden Peach Crisp Embossing Powder, which is probably my favorite embossing powder from Altenew. I love it. It's like kind of like a two-tone, shimmery, not shimmery, sort of a pearly look, and it really is pretty in real life. And I've heated it until it's smooth and melted with my heat tool. I'm then going to place it in my larger MISTI because it's much easier to get this stamp rotated and hang it off the edge of the cardstock by using the bigger MISTI. So quick tip for you there, don't use your mini MISTI when you're trying to create a background pattern with larger stamps. And I am so glad I used my MISTI as well. You saw there that when I initially stamped down, it's hard to see with clear embossing ink whether you got the entire image inked up or not. And I added my embossing powder and I saw, you know what, I've missed a little bit. So I heated it up and then I re-stamped it and heated it up again. You can also remove any excess embossing powder with a tiny brush. I have one just for the purposes of removing embossing powder. I don't use it for painting. And then any areas, I'm just going to come back in again with that stamp, rotating it until I've got an all over pattern. To paint my image, I'm using the watercolor brush markers. This is the Spring Garden set, and I'm starting off with the Rubellite. So I have off to the side a small glass of clear water, and I am adding very little paint here. You'll see I just go around an outline of those centers of each of the sweet peas, and I come in with a brush that is quite heavily laden with water. I fill in the rest of the petal and then let it wick out, and I move on to the next one. The heat embossing is great. It creates almost like a little well that keeps that water inside the petal, and it just lets that really intense color, watercolor brush markers are super intense, and it lets it wick out, so you get this really pretty sort of soft shaded pink color, and then sort of some sort of areas where it's a little bit darker, almost like shadow. And I am only doing one layer on the florals. I wanted to keep that look, that texture that you get from the wicking out. And I almost added, I would say, more water than normal just to get that look. I found on a couple of the petals where I didn't use as much water, it didn't quite wick out. It was very smooth in its color, and that might be what you're looking for, but I wanted some of that intense wicking look, and you'll see where it's that one sort of in the center there had some nice feathery bits. For the stems, I'm using Limeade, and I am just going to use that brush marker directly to paint and fill in those stems. They're very small areas, especially with that heat embossing, and the Limeade is quite a light color, so I didn't need to use any water there. For the centers, I'm going to do the same with Warm Sunshine, which is a really light yellow color. I am going to add some depth with two additional colours. So for the centres, I'm using Autumn Blaze, but I didn't want it to overpower that yellow. So I'm scribbling it off on an Altenew palette off to the side and then adding water so I can control the intensity of that colour. And I'm literally just adding a tiny bit down into the centre of those flower centres and pulling it out very slightly with a damp brush. I'm going to do exactly the same on the stems using Evergreen, scribble it off to the side and just water it down with water to remove that intensity. For the background, I'm using Sea Breeze, which is also in the same set. And again, I want to have it very pale. I want a really pale wash in those background areas. So I'm scribbling it off on my palette, adding lots and lots and lots of water. It's a very pale blue. You almost can't quite see it in the video. I promise you it's there. And I'm just going to fill in those areas with a wet brush. Not too wet. I don't want it to bleed into those flowers, but enough for me to be able to create that wash without any harsh lines. Now I'm going to add some splatters with Rubelite. Again, I don't want it to have too much intensity, otherwise it looks a little bit like blood. I will say you don't want it too intense, so I scribbled it off the side and added those splatters with a wet brush. For a finishing touch, I'm going to add a couple of spritzes of pure white ink spray just over the panel, and that sort of gradually lightens a little bit and gives this really nice look at the end, very painterly look. For my sentiment, I'm using vellum. I'm going to create a sticker using a die cut by first taking a panel of vellum and backing it with some Altenew double-sided adhesive sheets, and I'm then going to run it through my die cutting machine with this Mega Hello die. I'm adhering it with some Satin masking tape by Altenew, which is my favourite tape for masking and for adhering die cuts as I run them through the machine. It die cuts super easily, and this creates this vellum sticker that is pretty subtle in the photos. You can't see it too well. The recipient will see it really well, and it just adds this nice sentiment without taking away from that background, which is really the star of the show. I've adhered it directly over the top of that background, and then I'm going to pop that up on a note card using some blue fun foam just for dimension, but it also has that extra added benefit of making sure my warped cardstock, once it's dry, is adhered down flat. To finish, I'm going to add a sentiment strip. This is Obsidian Pigment Ink that's great for stamping sentiments, and I've grabbed this one from the Paint-A-Flower Sweet Pea Stamp Set. And I'm just going to stamp it down in a panel of white cardstock and trim it out and then add it over the top with a foam strip using my tweezers, and then that way you can see in the photos that sentiment perfectly, and that little pop of vellum is just a little bit of a surprise for the recipient. It sort of overhangs the edges, and I didn't cut off the excess because I liked the way it looked. And a few satin white sequins finishes the look, and that's it from me for today. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to give it a thumbs up, leave me a comment, let me know what you thought and if it inspired you to create. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful day. Bye.
Hello crafters, Jen here. For more tips, techniques, tutorials, and to discover which paper crafting products are right for you, subscribe to Altenew's YouTube channel. Make sure to hit the notification bell so you don't miss any videos. Thanks for watching.